Let's get started here, Evan, with the number one story so far has to be Joe Mixon's foot/ankle injury. Joe Mixon expected to miss the entire preseason. I'd personally consider him very questionable for week one. Jane Slater reported that Mixon injured his right foot/ankle twice in the last year, and this is a third injury to it. I would also note that Mixon went on the NFI list. In other words, this was not a football injury. At least the Texans are claiming it's not a football injury. So a lot of questions here. Evan, general thoughts on what happens or what's going on with Joe Mixon right now?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a foot injury that has been recurring. This is maybe his third procedure that he's undergone regarding the injury during his career. And I mean, he's an aging back with a lot of wear on his tires. And I mean, the rumors that we've heard are not promising. So to me, I mean, I pulled him all the way out of the top 150. I'm not going to draft him anywhere. I moved Woody Marks way up, the Texans' fourth round rookie, who's a player that caught 261 passes in his 5-year college career. He's not a special athlete, but he's got some size. He's 5'10", 207. I've heard that the Texans really, really like him. He was like a player that they went into the draft targeting. And I know that Nick Chubb might theoretically be the Texans' lead back. I just don't know how much he's got left. I think it's probably not very much, especially based on DeMeco Ryans' recent comments about what he does have left. He's 30 years old. People forget, he was coming off that devastating knee injury last year, but he also broke his foot at the end of the year. And behind this remade offensive line, in which I have very little confidence, I just don't think that he's going to be able to get anything going. And they're going to have to resort to a pass-heavy offense, a lot of short passing, and that suits Woody Marks' skill set to a T. So Woody Marks, I have him now in the 112 range or something like that overall.
Yeah.
And he's a player that if you're using my rankings, you're going to get him in your drafts.
Okay. Yeah. So first for me on Mixon, it's very rare I would say I wouldn't take someone at any price, right? But on Mixon, man, I think there's a chance he's going to miss a ton of time this season. And yeah, you can make case for him in the 90s. You make case for him in the hundreds. If he didn't get to like 150 or 160, I don't think it's really worth the risk on Joe Mixon right now until we get more information on it. Evan mentioned Nick Chubb's injury history. 2015 blew out his left ACL, MCL, PCL, and patella. 2020, right MCL sprain. 2023, ACL, MCL, and meniscus in that same left knee. Then in 2024, breaks his foot. He'll turn 30 in December. This quote, and you can go to my Twitter to find it, this quote from DeMeco Ryans that Evan referenced is just like, yeah, basically DeMeco Ryans said, Father Time comes for all of us. That's basically what DeMeco Ryans said. And the last point that I'd make on Woody Marks, Texans gave up a round 3 pick in the 2026 draft to move up in round 4 to get him in this draft. So it wasn't like they were like, well, all right, let's take a shot at Woody Marks. They gave a 3rd round pick, which is pretty valuable, a round 3 pick in next year's draft to go get Woody Marks, which I think matters. I've gotten a question a couple times, Evan. Dameon Pierce, new scheme, Bobby Slowick is gone. Do you think that Dameon Pierce can give them anything? Because the reason everybody says, and I'm no, football tape bro, but everybody says that the scheme is the reason that Dameon Pierce just fell off the face of the earth. What do you think about him given all this new stuff in the Texans backfield?
He has not been practicing, I believe, so far in training camp, right?
Correct.
So there's been no buzz on him at all because, the reporters haven't even seen him out there. So I don't know. He's a guy that we can talk about when the preseason games start. Like, if he can get to the point where he's healthy and actually be able to play in a preseason game, maybe we could have develop some opinions on him. He's always been, he had a kick return touchdown last year. Like, he's a height, weight, speed guy, but I think his instincts, questionable. He's been, he's a height, weight, speed guy, and sometimes those guys don't, they're not able to put it all together, and obviously he's got to get on the field.
So one thing that we've done in the ETR ranks to try to kind of mitigate all this is give unlisted work. Do you think that's a possibility, Evan? In other words, Texans sign someone, Devin Singletary or someone else. If they don't think Nick Chubb can play And if they think Willie Marks is strictly a pass down back, they don't like Dameon Pierce. There's going to be other backs that come available. I know Devin Singletary's been floated. What do you think the chances are of that?
I think that they're just as strong as, I mean, they're, probably a top 3 probability team to trade for a running back. I mean, they could trade for a running back. This is a team with high aspirations. They could have the best defense in the league this year. They've got, a third-year quarterback. They've got a lot of talent again in the receiver core. They're a team with big aspirations. So I'm really glad that you pointed out that they gave up the 3rd-round pick to get Woody Marks. That could maybe deter them a little bit from trying to make a trade for a running back. They certainly will be scouring the waiver wire. I have no doubt about that.
Last thing you mentioned is a pass-heavy attack going forward for the Texans. In the ETR ranks, we're up at 10th overall on Nico Collins, 110 on Jaden Higgins, 126 on Christian Kirk. All of those are above Yahoo ADP. And again, I'm looking at redraft rankings and redraft ADP now, not best ball. Have you, or do you plan to move up any of those guys? I have Nico, Jaden, Christian Kirk, Stroud.
Well, I have Christian Kirk at 88 overall. So
can't get higher.
Can't get higher than that. I wonder if we'll be talking about him on Man versus Machine. I feel like we've talked about Christian Kirk in the past on Man versus Machine.
Yes.
No, I mean, Nico Collins, I have as a 1st-round pick.
Yep.
And Stroud is like quarterback. I mean, I still have my reservations about Stroud because he's not a big-time runner. And I'm worried about the offensive line situation.
And they're going to try to play D to win games. I think so. So we have Stroud at QB 18 in the ETR ranks here. Also not really a target for us in 12-team home league type settings. By the way, Evan mentioned Man vs. Machine. We are recording Man vs. Machine Wednesday of this week. So shout out to us. Be sure you're locked in, subscribed, free here on YouTube and the podcast to catch that annual treat. All right. Second story from the first week of training camp. Najee Harris with this July 4th fireworks eye issue, still not practicing. Now, at least we've spotted him, Evan. At least we've seen him. I still haven't seen his eyes, though. First, he was wearing like a hood and sunglasses and a mask. Now he's out there in shorts and T-shirt and sunglasses. Chargers haven't really expressed concern, but it's just a weird situation. I mean, is he going to go full eye patch? Or what if he takes off the glasses and like he's got a glass eye or something like that? Not saying he can't play football if his eye is really messed up, but it seems like a really weird situation. What's your read right now, Evan, and how are you handling the ranking on Najee versus Omari and Hampton?
I have Najee Harris as virtually undraftable right now because I don't know. The eye is a part of the body that's like, feels like it's, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to pretend to be a doctor. Okay. But it just feels like, they're just hoping that it heals. And if you hear the rhetoric coming from the Chargers, that's what they're saying. We're praying. Didn't Jim Harbaugh say at some point that we're praying?
Yeah. So
that's worrisome. Also, they signed Nyheim Hines. They brought in a bunch of running backs for a workout. I've got Omari and Hampton. I'm doing a bunch of drafts right now. I got a ton of slow drafts, BBM 6s going on. I've got a bunch of them already done. And I've been getting a lot of Omari and Hampton.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that his ADP has necessarily risen to a point where it should be. I mean, I think that he should be a 3rd-round fantasy pick right now.
Both Evan and the ETR ranks have gotten way in front of the market on Omari and Hampton. Evan's at 26 overall on Hampton. We're at 28 overall on Hampton. And this is the kind of guy in redraft, in like a home league setting, you're going to be able to get pretty easily. His ADP on Yahoo right now is 43.3. So yeah, I'm pretty worried about Najee. Haven't taken him once, since we started hearing about this incident. We have him down at 150 overall in the ranks until we hear more there. Third story is another injury one. Chris Godwin, camp opens and report from Jenna Lane that Chris Godwin had another procedure on that dislocated ankle. He's still not practicing. And then on top of that, we've been getting a ton of Emeka Egbuka hype through the first week of camp. So first on Godwin, we knew about the original surgery on his dislocated ankle. Get the report that the second one here was a clean out. He's on PUP, and there's non-committal on Godwin for week 1 here. Evan, how concerned are you on Godwin right now? And what do you think of the Emeka Egbuka, relentless hype here through 1 week of camp.
Yeah, I'm fairly concerned about Chris Godwin. I moved him down to wide receiver 37. That's a point in the draft where you're probably not going to get him if you're using the rankings. The only positive data point that we have on Chris Godwin since he got injured last year is the contract. That's the only positive data point. We're hearing about other surgeries. He's 29 years old. They used a first-round pick at his position.
Lost their offensive coordinator.
Lost their offensive coordinator. Lost their left tackle. The negative data points are piling up. I'm not drafting Chris Godwin right now, and I have Emeka Egbuka at a point where you could definitely get him if you're using the top 150. I mean, I believe in him, and he's a player that I'm going to end up being ahead of ADP, even if his ADP continues to surge, which it is surging right now.
Yeah, we're actually even lower than Silva on Godwin. Like, I've been real worried about Godwin. We have him down to 82 overall in the ETR ranks, and we actually have Egbuka 88 overall. So we have those guys real close right now. Godwin slightly ahead still, but real close there between Egbuka and Chris Godwin. The contract, again, I don't get it. Like, the Patriots wanted to pay him more, and he said, no thanks. I'm going to take this $44 million guaranteed from the Bucks. At the time, they must have thought the ankle was totally fine, but between the Egbuka thing and now this latest cleanup procedure, I'm just getting much, much more concerned here on Chris Godwin. All right, fourth story, another veteran injury here, Evan. Matthew Stafford comes into camp with a back issue. He has not been throwing. He is considered week to week. I know you don't, Evan, but like, whenever I see Matthew Stafford back stuff, I kind of just brush it off because he's been playing with this since, I'm not exaggerating, 2018. There were some small fractures they found in Matthew Stafford's back. He played through it. 2019, he had fractures in his spine, missed the final 8 games. He did miss some time in 2022, partially due to back woes. But my point is, he's been dealing with this for, not exaggerating, 7 years, and for the most part, has played through it. So I didn't view this as like a new concern, but Evan, it sounded to me like you were more concerned. Any thoughts on the Stafford back stuff?
That's an interesting way to view it. I mean, he's 37 years old, though, with a long history of back injuries, and they set a little timeline on him to return, and he did not meet and he was not out there when they expected him to be out there.
Yeah.
Their left tackle is questionable for the start of the season.
Yeah, Alaric Jackson,
Yep, Alaric Jackson. You got Sean McVay talking up Jimmy Garoppolo, who's their backup, who, listen, he provides a nice floor. I mean, if you're talking about backup options across the league, I would feel better about Jimmy Garoppolo than many of them on other teams. And I do think that, at the end of the day, I think Matthew Stafford's probably going to be ready for week 1. He's one of the toughest quarterbacks in the league as well. Mm-hmm. But, could this become an issue during the season? I mean, I slightly bumped down all the Rams guys.
Yeah. We gave it a small doc also just on concern because, not that, like Evan said, Jimmy Garoppolo is a win. He doesn't scramble. He's not going to run for touchdowns. He's not going to take a ton of sacks. He's going to get the ball out. But Matthew Stafford is the wide receiver kingmaker. And so we moved Puka down to 13 overall. Devontae Adams, 38 overall. Kyron's at 29 overall here for us in the ETR ranks. Silva went a little bit more aggressive. He's down to 40 overall on Devontae Adams, 45 overall on Kyron, 12th on Puka here. Last thing I'd say on this, on the Stafford back, Sean McVay claimed, and listen, Sean McVay has claimed plenty of stuff through the years, but Sean McVay claimed there was no setback here on Matthew Stafford. This is the plan. They're taking it a week at a time. The goal is week 1. They don't have any reason to be concerned, etc. We'll be tracking the Stafford stuff closely, though, just trying to be a little bit cautious for now there. Speaking of cautious, number 5 story comes out of Atlanta. Darnell Mooney hurt his shoulder one of the first days of camp, expected to miss several weeks. Raheem Morris would not commit to Darnell Mooney definitely being ready for week 1. I'm no doctor. Sounded to me like an AC joint sprain, kind of came down on it, but we do not have details there. He's going to miss the entire preseason, which is not great. But the good news is he was spotted at practice, watching without a brace. joking around. Falcons don't seem overly concerned. They claim that they were going to sign DJ Chark even before the Darnell Mooney injury. I don't know how true that is or not, but yeah, Evan, what do you think about the Moondog going down with his shoulder?
Yeah, DJ Chark actually came here to Chicago and visited the Bears, and then the Falcons, like immediately as soon as Darnell Mooney went down, they signed DJ Chark. I don't even know if he had a workout before the one with the Bears. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. See, to me, like I thought it was a little bit more questionable that he's going to be ready for Week 1. This was disappointing to me, and I know it was for Pat Thorman because Pat Thorman's been drafting the heck out of Darnell Mooney. I have big expectations for Michael Penix this year from like a passing volume and passing output standpoint. I bet on him to lead the league in passing yards at 30-1 and to go over 4,500 yards at 13-1. I need Darnell Mooney out there. Darnell Mooney is like a really good fit for what Michael Penix does, which is throw the perimeter ball down the football field, and is coming off probably his best season in the NFL. Darnell Mooney, I think we could say that. But AC joint, I mean, dudes play through that. Yeah. It's just they're going to be super cautious, obviously, and he's missing a lot of reps with Michael Penix that I'd rather have him have right now.
Yeah. We did not move him very far down in the ETR ranks. We moved him. We were at like 90 or 95. Now we're at 101 here on Darnell Mooney. Silva's at 97. They did make a comment that I thought was notable. They said, Darnell Mooney is one of the smartest guys that we have. They're not worried about him missing, the playbook. The last thing I would note on the Mooney stuff, and this leads me to the Kyle Pitts discussion, this team ran 3 wide receiver sets. The Falcons did at the highest rate in the entire NFL. They do not have the personnel to do that if Drake London or Darnell Mooney goes down. We're talking about Ray McLeod, Kadero Hodge, DJ Chark. So then the obvious next question, Evan, is, let's just put Kyle Pitts at wide receiver. There's been talk, a lot of that. My concern with always is that you line Kyle Pitts up at wide receiver, how's he going to get open against cornerbacks? So there's been a ton of Kyle Pitts buzz. I gave my take on it yesterday. Some people didn't like it on Market Monday. Hopefully you guys listen to that. But go ahead on the Kyle Pitts hype, Evan. He is up a ton, like 10 spots in ADP in the best ball stuff.
Okay. I came out pretty hot on him.
Yeah.
I think I've got him at tight end 11, maybe.
Yeah. Silva is 137, the tight end 12 on Pitts, and ETR ranks are 132, the tight end 16 on Pitts.
So he's 24 years old. He plays indoors on a team that I think is going to be throwing the ball with volume and throwing the football downfield. I'm like you. I'd rather not have him at wide receiver. I don't know if the quote was that they were having him line up at wide receiver or just work with the wide receiver.
I think you're right. I think just practicing some wide receiver stuff. Yeah.
Which that sounds a little bit better to me because I want him in the slot. Really. Yeah. That's where I want Kyle Pitts, where he can get matched up against smaller slot corners. You don't want him outside against 6'1", 6'2" perimeter cornerbacks. Smaller slot corners, linebackers, and safeties working closer to the line of scrimmage and, running downfield, really, running intermediate routes.
Yeah.
But again, 24 years old, former Mackey Award winner. I know he has stunk for the last multiple seasons.
3, yeah.
But he did have 1,000 yards as a rookie. And again, still only 24 years old in what should be a positive environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can build the case for him. Like,
sure,
to be a fringe tight end 1, and that's all we're asking right now. When his ADP as of 2 weeks ago was like tight end 18 or 19.
Yeah. In the Yahoo redraft ADP, he goes 146 as the tight end 17 off the board there in season long. I prefer Jake Ferguson. I prefer Tucker Kraft. I prefer Dallas Goedert. I prefer Tyler Warren. Like, there's so many that I prefer. And then if you wait till later, you can get guys that like Gesicki or Hunter Henry, Kate Otten, Arroyo, Chigakonkwo. So he's just in a weird spot, I think, where he goes. But the best case for him to me is just that he's so cheap. Like, literally, like, it's not going to take a lot for him to get there. But I'm still passing for the most part. Let's go to Indy for the number 6 story. Anthony Richardson. Everybody was worried about the shoulder injury he sustained during OTAs. Comes out for training camp, looks fine, practicing the whole time. even split in reps so far, roughly between him and Daniel Jones. And the reports out of Indy are that Daniel Jones did not do anything to seize the job during OTAs, during the summer months or the early summer months while Anthony Richardson was out. And so now beat writers are actually changing their mind. They think that Anthony Richardson is now the favorite to start week 1. I always thought that, like, what's the point of starting Daniel Jones and like hoping to win 8 or 9 games? Use the number 4 overall pick on Anthony Richardson. Let's at least see what he's got, man. He has not even started 20 NFL games yet. And I know that it looks really bad right now. If I'm the Colts, though, I'm giving Anthony Richardson as many chances as I can. That may be a tougher sell in the locker room, though. Any thoughts, Evan, on the latest on the quarterback saga here in Indy?
So since early in the offseason, the national insiders have been on the side of Daniel Jones winning this camp battle. And even Albert Breer, who went to Colts camp, late last week, he came out of there saying that he still thinks that Daniel Jones is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Chris Ballard talks to national guys. But then you have the Colts beat writers who are there watching practice, and they're like, Anthony Richardson is playing better than Daniel Jones. So I just think that this is an ongoing camp competition. The fact of the matter is Anthony Richardson way more talented than Daniel Jones. So if he continues to stay healthy and he doesn't take any steps back, I'm with you. I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to open the season with Anthony Richardson as their starter. Will he be able to keep it? I don't think so.
Probably not.
But, so I think ultimately we should probably expect them to maybe give 8 starts to Daniel Jones. If we're going to do a projection, 8 starts to Daniel Jones, 8 starts to Anthony Richardson, maybe 1 to Riley Leonard in week 18. And that's kind of how I'd have it right down the middle.
Okay. So from a strategy standpoint, I know you don't have Anthony Richardson ranked in the top 150. My point would be for redraft that
I have drafted him sometimes, though.
Yes. And listen, he was 5th last season in fantasy points per dropback behind only Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Justin Fields. In 2023, Anthony Richardson was 1st in fantasy points per dropback on a small sample. And that does not include designed runs. Again, that's fantasy points per dropback. And so my point is for redraft, even if you don't know when he's going to start, anytime he does start, he's going to be a pretty valuable option for you. And so just in managed leagues, I think he's more valuable. I still take him in best ball as a 3rd quarterback if I have 2 solid ones already. But in managed, I'm pretty tempted to wait on quarterback and take Anthony Richardson if I miss on some of those elites and try to piece it together with a Dak, Anthony Richardson quarterback room or something. And you should know who to start on a week-to-week basis. It should be pretty easy. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking about this right now. Last thing I'd say is that the more Anthony Richardson starts we give him in projection, the less pass volume we have, the less pass efficiency we have. So it's not ideal for Downs, Pittman, Tyler Warren type stuff.
Yep.
All right. Number 7 turned out to be somewhat of a nothing burger here, but Justin Fields dislocated his toe on one of the first days of camp. They called him day-to-day. He was already back at practice. I just wanted to talk about Fields here for a second. Seems to be, I'm surprised that there's been pushback on Fields and his ADP hasn't really moved. I expected him to steam pretty hard. Silva is actually really high on Justin Fields, 80th overall in his top 150, ahead of Patrick Mahomes, well ahead of Kyler Murray. The best ball market has been taking Fields way behind Mahomes and Kyler Murray. But yeah, I like being optimistic Fields here. Evan, I know the toe thing turned out to be no big deal, but any more thoughts on Justin Fields here?
Yeah, he's going to be my highest owned quarterback, maybe by far. And I did bump him up with the Rashee Rice stuff because I was teetering on Mahomes or Fields. And I also have Kyler Murray in that tier, and I wanted to move Fields ahead of Mahomes, and then the Rashee Rice impending suspension kind of gave me that impetus. So I have Fields 6, Mahomes 7, Kyler Murray 8.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought Fields, and I know it was really small sample, but I thought he looked more comfortable as a passer last year. He started 6 games for Arthur Smith last year with no weapons. Still, despite playing for Arthur Smith with no weapons, still had 4 games of 16 plus DK points out of those 6, including a 36-point nuclear game and a 24-point game. So we know the floor is going to be there thanks to the rushing. People are fair to question the ceiling if you can't complete a pass. I just think this the ceiling is still there on Justin Fields to be a reasonable, or at least, you know, a 30th percentile thrower or something like that. Speaking of the Jets, number 8 story is all this Braylon Allen hype. And this is mostly coming from The Athletic. The Athletic has been absolutely relentless that Braylon Allen is way ahead of Isaiah Davis, and he'd be in a David Montgomery role, whereas Breece Hall will be in a Jahmyr Gibbs role. Now, not every Jets beat reporter is pushing this. I just, if both those things are true, then Braylon Allen is way too cheap. And by both those things, I mean he's iced Isaiah Davis, and Tanner Engstrom is going to go with Breece Braylon like a Gibbs Montgomery role. So how are you buying this at all? Evan, what do you think about the split here between Breece, Braylon, and Isaiah Davis?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's become clear to Breece Hall that he's not going to get an extension, and he's probably not going to be back with the Jets. And so I guess they have, reasons to look down the depth chart. And look, with Braylon Allen, it's interesting because he came into the league as I think he was the youngest player drafted in 2024. And he also was a converted linebacker. So would it really shock anyone if he makes like a huge second year leap in his second year in the NFL? Really, it shouldn't. The thing is that with the offense, how many touchdowns are the Jets going to score? How many passes are they even going to attempt as a team? So those high value touches are, they're kind of up in the air with the Jets. But in terms of like opportunity and like upside, like Braylon Allen is one of the most exciting RB2s in the league.
Yeah. So my only question here is if Breece Hall went down, I don't think we'd see full Braylon workhorse. I think we'd see Isaiah Davis mix in plenty there. So like, whereas if Bijan went down, Tyler Algier would just go completely nuts, right? So if you're looking for pure handcuff upside, maybe it's not as much there with Braylon. But if the Montgomery Gibbs thing holds true, Braylon Allen, is obviously way underdrafted in a David Montgomery role for Tanner Engstrom here. Let's go to number 9 story. Jake Ferguson gets a new deal. So everybody was waiting for Micah Parsons to get his new deal. Instead, out of nowhere, Cowboys do a 4-year, $52 million deal with Jake Ferguson, $30 million guaranteed. Jake Ferguson was entering the final year of his rookie deal. Silva is up at 96 overall. I know you've been really high on Jake Ferguson throughout this process, Evan. I mean, Cowboys made a statement here. They had plenty of guys to pay, and they decided to pay Jake Ferguson here. What do you think of that? And any more thoughts here on Fergie?
And it's funny because they haven't paid some of the guys who we know are really good, and Jake Ferguson isn't that good.
Right.
I mean, last year he averaged 8.4 yards per pass attempt. Now per reception. Now I understand that they didn't have their quarterback, but I mean even in the years prior, he's never been particularly efficient. He did during Dak's last full season, 2023. He had 71 catches and he scored 5 touchdowns. That would be a really nice season for him. He's not like a difference maker, and they gave him a pretty darn pretty penny. So weird decision from an organizational standpoint, but I like him in fantasy. I mean, this is a situation where the ball should be going 3 places in their offense, and that's to CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, and Jake Ferguson. This should be a condensed offense. No Jalen Tolbert or any of these other guys. Even Luke Schoonmaker apparently has not been standing out in camp. He's not making any kind of a move on Jake Ferguson, who just got this big deal. So it should be a condensed offense that throws the ball a lot with their starting quarterback back. Really nice situation for Jake Ferguson, even though I don't fully believe in him as a player. He does have a very good-looking girlfriend, though.
Okay, well, that's all that matters in life. Jake Ferguson, Silva's much higher than us on Jake Ferguson. We're at 125 overall, which, by the way, is still ahead of the Yahoo ADP. We're 125 overall. Silva's at 96 overall here on Jake Ferguson. Last note I had on him is Dak does have a history of throwing to tight end with volume. I mean, Jason Witten, Dalton Schultz had some pretty nice fantasy years there with Dak. Let's go to number 10 story, sticking with Dallas. I'm sure you saw this, Evan. There was a report, and this was right before camp started, a report that Jaden Blue, the Cowboys thought Jaden Blue was quote-unquote lazy. Now, this was from Glenn Smith. Glenn Smith was actually part of the Cowboys like 20-something years ago as a scout and a assistant coach. He has a radio show or something now, and basically said the Cowboys weren't thrilled with Jaden Blue's work ethic. Said he spoke to coaches in Dallas who believe the rookie is borderline lazy. I thought, whatever. It's also worth noting that Dane Brugler, draft Nick extraordinaire for The Athletic, he wrote before the draft, Jaden Blue may need time to learn what it takes to be a professional. Now, with all that said, I didn't really buy it too much. So I was happy to see that over the last couple days, Blue has been getting glowing reports from beat writers about his play. And then Brian Schottenheimer came out and said, Jaden Blue has brought a ton of professionalism here to the start of training camp. So I didn't really think we should move Jaden Blue on all this stuff. Evan, did you get any concern on the Jaden Blue lazy stuff here? Any more thoughts on the Dallas backfield?
No, that was just the book on him coming out of college. I mean, that's the case with some guys. Like, he's 21 years old, and he's awesome. I mean, the game comes natural to him. It's just, he doesn't work as hard as some other guys, and that's why he goes in the 5th round,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been drafting him.
Yeah, and he the other knock that people give on Jaden Blue is he didn't earn work in college, right? I believe over 3 seasons he only had 1,100 rushing yards. I know he's playing behind some good backs, but still, that's the other knock there on Jaden Blue. And it's going to be, I think, a pretty severe committee, at least to start the year, between Javonte,
probably
Miles, and hopefully some Jaden Blue to start there.
Another guy who's gotten a little bit of love is Phil Maffa, their 7th round pick. And this is a situation, this is one of the most up in the air backfields in the league. We will be looking at Phil Maffa in preseason games. He should get work.
Well, listen, I mean, and a lot of people are like, Rico Dowdle sucks. Rico Dowdle can't play. He shouldn't even be in the NFL. Rico Dowdle ran for 1,079 yards last season without Dak for a lot of the year. Also caught 39 balls. So I don't want to just say there's no value here. I do think they're going to be pass heavy. I'm heavily invested in their passing game, but yeah, they're still going to have rushing production for sure. Evan mentioned the Rashee Rice suspension news. That is our number 11 story. Finally, Rashee Rice reached a plea agreement, pled guilty to 2 third-degree felony charges stemming from that racing incident on the highway. We're expecting the NFL to announce a suspension soon and expecting it to start the season, expecting it to be somewhere in the 3 to 6 game range. We're roughly projecting 4-game suspension for Rashee Rice. Silva has him 53rd overall and 49 on Xavier Worthy. Evan, how are you thinking about the Chiefs now without Rashee Rice, probably for at least 3 games, maybe more?
Yeah, my sense is that it's going to be 4, but hopefully we'll find out sooner rather than later. I had to move him down, and I moved up Xavier Worthy correspondingly. And, I mean, I'm still willing to draft Rashee Rice because I think that it's probably 6 games would be a lot.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be more like 4, hopefully, because apparently he's been looking awesome in training camp. Actually, a lot of buzz on Xavier Worthy as well.
Yeah.
Xavier Worthy, if you remember, he was another guy who came out really, really young. He was 21 when he was drafted, and he just turned 22 early this offseason. So arrows pointing up on him as well. I had high hopes that we would have this receiver core, this 3-receiver set with those 2 guys in Hollywood rearing to go as soon as the season start. But obviously we're not going to have that with Rashee Rice facing a suspension.
Yeah, and we went even a little bit further than Evan. We have Rashee Rice 60th overall right now and Xavier Worthy 37th. So, pretty big position for us right now on Xavier Worthy. The other guy that gets a bump anytime Rashee Rice misses games is clearly Travis Kelce. But, it's hard for me to see it on Kelce finding a ceiling late in the year. And so we're still pretty far behind redraft ADP. I mean, Kelsey's going 66th overall on Yahoo right now. We're at 84 overall on Kelce. Let's go to, we have Travis Hunter snap counts. Shout out to Michael DeRocco. I hope I said that right. ESPN Jaguars reporter, actually out there physically charting where Travis Hunter lines up every play of practice. So through 6 practices, he has
How does he see How does he see the other players if that's all he cares about is one guy, Travis
Listen,
Hunter?
man, he knows what people care about.
All right,
He's
fair
doing a
enough.
great job. 119 snaps through 6 practices for Travis Hunter. 72 have been on offense, 47 on defense. Now, I don't want to like read too much into that. It's all part of the plan. Some days he's with offense the whole day. Some days he's with defense the whole day. I assume some days he's going to mix in with both. I think that, 60 to 70% of the snaps on offense, that's roughly what we've been projecting. My thought, though, as I like think through this more is, I mean, what's going to happen when like some big back or some tight end comes around the corner? Travis Hunter has to tackle this dude 3-5 times a game and then go run a bunch of routes. Like, I get he's in great shape. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm too nitty, but I'm still a little bit worried on the Travis Hunter stuff when he goes in the 40s and the 50s. Evan, any thoughts on the Travis Hunter usage early in camp here?
Yeah, and see, and then I saw another report from Mia O'Brien, who covers the Jaguars, and it was like, and they have 6 practices under their belt, and it was like he was wide receiver on the first day, wide receiver on the second day, cornerback on the third day, cornerback on the fourth day, wide receiver on the fifth day, wide receiver on the sixth day. So it seems like they're going 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 2 days off, or 2 days offense, 2 days defense, and I don't know if the individual reps, they could just differ based on the day. They don't get as many reps in on this day. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think at the end of the day, like, they are going to see Travis Hunter with the ball in his hands, and like they're not going to be able to stop giving him the ball.
Yep.
I mean, because he's incredible, and I don't think that I don't think that he's going to be having to tackle running backs very often. I mean, cornerbacks don't typically have to tackle running backs very often.
Yeah, so we're at 58 overall in season long. Silva's at 55 overall on Travis Hunter.
He's very often at the top of my queue. I mean, people are scared to draft him.
Yep.
I mean, I end up with a decent amount.
Yep. Okay. Speaking of the Jaguars, number 13 story is one of the ones that fantasy community has been talking about most so far through a week of camp. Tank Bigsby has been the quote-unquote starter for a lot of the reps early in Jaguars camp. Now, remember, this is a new regime. They drafted Bashal Tutin. They have Travis Etienne. They have Tank Bigsby. I feel like you've been saying, Evan, for a while that Tank Bigsby is their best pure runner, their best between the tackles runner. And it doesn't surprise me that the new regime sees it that way. I question how valuable just a strict between the tackles role is for fantasy, though, when you have 2 other guys in the mix. Evan, what do you think of these reports on Tank Bigsby, and how do you think this one plays out?
They're good for Bigsby, and the reports have not been great for Bashal Tutin, and the reports have been so-so for Travis Etienne. So those guys are going to be moving around rankings all the time. Their ADPs will be bumping up and down based on the latest reports. That's just how it's going to go with a wide open running back competition. But right now, it looks like Tank Bigsby is probably the best draft pick, at least relative to cost, because I think that Travis Etienne is still has the highest ADP.
Yeah.
And Tutin might actually have second highest.
Yep.
But it looks like Bigsby right now is the best draft pick at cost. Also, I think Bigsby only has 8 catches through 2 NFL seasons, but he wasn't a zero in the passing game at all in college. He had over 60 catches in a 3-year career at Auburn. So I wouldn't totally dismiss him as a zero in the passing game, although Travis Etienne is certainly better than him, and I think Bashal Tutin has more upside to be better than Tank Bigsby in the passing game. But I don't think that he's necessarily a zero, despite what happened in the first 2 seasons of his career.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Yahoo redraft ADP, and Bigsby actually does go higher than Tutin. And so, all these guys that the best ball community and the hardcore community is like obsessed with, you're going to be able to get Tutin really late in a redraft and just put him on your bench and see what happens if you like Bashal Tutin, which, depending on how deep the league is, I would still consider stashing him, but I certainly wouldn't be going nuts with that at all. I believe Evan's still working on tweaks on the Jaguar stuff in his top 150. I assume you have Tutin 105 right now, Evan. I assume that's going to be
I'm going to move him down and move Bigsby ahead of him.
Yep. Okay. Story 14. So Terry McLaurin ended his hold out, but is executing a hold in. In other words, he reported to camp, but he's on PUP with a quote unquote ankle injury, which everyone knows will go away if and when he gets his new deal. Now, Schefter is reporting that McLaurin is unlikely to accept less than DK Metcalf's new deal, which was $33 million a year. At age 29, 30, you're pretty hard pressed to give McLaurin more than DK Metcalf got. I mean, you're talking about making McLaurin one of the top 5 highest paid receivers in the league. The Broncos just did a deal with Cortland Sutton, 4 years, $92 million extension. That, to me, sounds more like the range that Terry McLaurin should probably be in. I think this is going to get maybe ugly a little bit in the media. We still expect something to get done here in terms of the contract. Evan, what do you think about what's going on with McLaurin right now?
Yeah, it's a little frustrating because that Cortland Sutton deal should provide the perfect framework for Terry McLaurin because they're almost the same age. They had very similar statistical outputs last year. McLaurin had more touchdowns. McLaurin had 13 receiving touchdowns last year, but that was an outlier, relative to the rest of his career. But the rest of their production was like almost identical. So that framework should be in place theoretically. But McLaurin obviously has higher aspirations. I don't think that he's going to get them. I think they're going to have to meet in the middle somehow.
I'm a little bit frustrated by this because I wanted to go for McLaurin fade when he was going like 29, 30, 33, 34 overall. I just wanted to go for a fade on that because I think the touchdown rate last year just propped up everything else. And then we were adding Debo to take away some of those horizontal screens and quick hitters that McLaurin profited on last year. But now his ADP is sinking on this holdout news. And so, he's getting to a more palatable price, I would say. And I do think that he's going to get a deal done. Silva's at 43 on Terry McLaurin. We are at 40 overall in the ETR ranks. All right. Let's go to story number 15. Patriots wide receiver role is coming into light a little bit. I talked about this on Market Monday, but it looks like, Evan, it's going to be Steph Diggs at the Z, Demario Douglas at the slot, and then Kai Williams versus Kayshon Boutte versus eventually Mac Hollins for reps at the X. Kai Williams has been a trendy kind of hipster pick, I think, in the best ball community. How do you think about this new look Patriots wideout core?
I moved up Stephon Diggs a little bit,
yeah,
but not to the extent that people are going to get him based on my rankings. I mean, he's still a late career wide receiver coming off a torn ACL, and I think that just over the course of time, if you bet against those guys, like that's a winning strategy in fantasy football. So I'm not real excited about Stephon Diggs. I know that the situation, I mean, it looks nice. I mean, I expect a second-year leap from Drake May, and Stephon Diggs has claim to the clear number one receiver job there. It's just old receivers coming off ACLs. And I mean, he was in clear decline, I think, over his last 2 seasons. Remember the end of his final year in Buffalo, and last year was okay. It definitely wasn't bad. But I mean, it wasn't great in Houston before he went down. The guy who I think I need to start taking more seriously is Pop Douglas.
Yeah.
Josh McDaniels has a long history of a ton of production from the slot receiver. And Pop Douglas, I mean, it's been hard for me to wrap my head around him as a 6th round pick who, he doesn't really have any superstar attributes or anything like that. But I think that he could catch 85 passes this year. I mean, I think that he's in position to where, I mean, it sounds like Diggs and him are locked in as the 1-2 at wide receiver right now. And then, as you mentioned, there's a 3-way competition at the X.
I think that Pop is only going to play in 3 wide receiver sets, and they're going to play plenty of 2 tight end sets because Josh McDaniels always does. But I agree with you. I had 0 Pop Douglas. Just this week, I started taking some more Pop Douglas here. It's hard on projections with Steph Diggs, where does the volume go? It's hard to give a lot of these other guys a lot of volume. And so if you think Drake May is going to have a good year, if you think they're going to throw it a decent amount, it's hard not to be above market on Steph Diggs from a projection basis. We're at 75 overall on Steph Diggs in the ETR season-long rankings right now. I agree with Evan. That makes me a little bit queasy, but man, he's looked healthy. Like we need to go on boats with girls and drugs and stuff next offseason, Evan, and that'll make us very ready to come out to training camp and uh, be ready to dominate.
Let's do it.
All right. Speaking of roles in Whiteout Course, story 16, the Raiders. So looks like Dante Thornton is like going to be the clear X. Jack Besh versus Trey Tucker at the Z, and then Jacoby Myers in that every down slot role plus a lot more. So Silva has Jacoby Myers at 76 overall, Besh and Thornton unranked. I think that's roughly how I would have it as well. But I take a ton of Jacoby Myers just because it's like boring-ish production that no one wants. But anytime a guy can get 8, 10, 12 targets in a game, he still has a ceiling. So, Evan, what do you think about how Raiders wide receivers are shaken out here?
It sounds like Jack Bash really has not put a step forward at all. And Dante Thornton has really been the guy. And Dante Thornton brings speed that the other, so he brings an element that Jacoby Myers and, Brock Bowers really don't. I mean, like just from a straight line speed standpoint. So like there's a role there for Dante Thornton. And he's been standing out since like OTAs and minicamp. I mean, he's been generating buzz for quite a while now. And Jack Besh has not really generated any buzz.
Yeah.
So, but I think at the end of the day, like this offense is going to revolve around Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, and Jacoby Myers, and maybe with a little bit of Michael Mayer mixed in, and they're going to run the ball as much as they possibly can and throw the ball to Bowers and Jacoby Myers with extreme volume. And I love the comments from Geno Smith. He's like, I'd feel bad every time I don't throw the ball to Brock Bowers. I mean, that should be music to the ears of people who have been drafting Brock Bowers. I have. I mean, I have him. I try to inch him up every time I look at my rankings.
Yeah.
I want to get him. He's like my favorite second-round pick. I have him at 14 overall right now.
Yeah, to be clear, Silva has Brock Bowers ahead of Christian McCaffrey, ahead of Malik Neighbors, ahead of Chase Brown, ahead of Derrick Henry. And we're not that different in the ETR ranks. We're at 16 overall on Brock Bowers here as well. Just to give the quote, Geno on Bowers said, I can't give him the ball enough. I feel bad every time I don't throw him the ball. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm maximizing his ability, his talent, because that's going to help our team. So yes, some porn there for Brock Bowers on the Geno quote. Story 17 is Caleb Williams stuff. I know you're in Chicago, Evan. I was pretty optimistic on Caleb. I'm getting a little bit more queasy as bad camp reports come in on Caleb when you combine that with how he looked last season, how many sacks he took, which again, I think is somewhat of a quarterback stat. What do you think about all the noise coming out of Bears camp around Caleb, Evan? Are you getting worried at all that maybe Caleb is not this generational quarterback that everyone thought he was coming into the league?
Well, because I'm like especially inundated by Caleb coverage because, when I'm driving in my car, like I'm listening to sports radio around here. I just find it so entertaining. And then, I come home and I'm like listening to podcasts and, watching the insiders on TV. And I mean, they're talking about it too. So I'm extremely inundated. So it's almost like a day-to-day basis. Like when Bears training camp started, the vibes were so freaking bad on Caleb Williams. The offense, Ben Johnson kicked the offense off the field. Luther Burden wasn't ready. Colston Loveland wasn't ready. They're having like a three-way competition at left tackle. Everybody's been talking up the offensive line, but no one even knows who the starting left tackle is going to be. And things have kind of changed over the last 2 days. So again, living on a day-to-day basis can be dicey, but I think that things have gotten better over the last 2 days. I do think that there is a clear feeling that Caleb Williams is like he's going to have another rookie season because last year was just a complete waste. And even Ben Johnson and Declan Doyle, their young offensive coordinator, have come out and said this, like the offense is entirely different from what it was last year. It's an under center offense, and he didn't play in that at USC or Oklahoma. So his footwork's all messed up. He plays slower than Tyson Bagent and Case Keenum on the field, but things have gotten better the last 2 days. And Colston Loveland has been balling out. And Luther Burden came back, although he got kicked out of practice today, or he got thrown out of a session for like lining up offsides
Yeah.
on 2 plays in a row or something like that. I mean, again, I'm living day to day here, but it's gotten a little bit better, as opposed to when it started.
Silva is at 121 overall on Caleb, in the same tier as Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, and Bo Nix there for him. I like that. I've kind of moved him down a bit there in my head, but we are at 197 overall on the projection based, on the rankings based ETR rankings here, and he goes 107 overall in redraft right now, does Caleb. But there's so many quarterback options, man. Like, I'm optimistic that Justin Herbert can have a big year and get back to running more. I like Bo Nix's ability to run a little bit. I think Jordan Love is going to pass a lot more. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks there in that range if the Ben Johnson stuff hits. And like, I just don't want to rely too much on like, oh, Ben Johnson's here, everything's okay. Right. They're going to smash. I don't want to rely too much on that with Bears stuff. So I've tried to keep it under control. My most owned Bear is actually Colston Loveland by a long shot so far.
He's been drawing rave reviews.
Yeah.
Since they kind of unleashed him, because he came in a little limited with the offseason shoulder injury. But apparently he's like already iced Cole Kmet. Like, Cole Kmet is running with the second team offense, and Colston Loveland is running with the ones and like looking like a wide receiver out there.
Yeah. All right. A few more small ones before we get out of here. Noah Fant was cut by the Seahawks. This is one that we actually talked about like 4 or 5 months ago. We expected to happen. They waited so long to do it. They finally do it. Get rid of Noah Fant. I think it's going to be AJ Barner playing a ton of snaps in the inline role, and then you get Elijah Arroyo, the exciting rookie, in the pass catching role. Now, I don't think if I was doing like a top 150 like Evan is, I don't think I would have Arroyo in there. I'm not sure he's going to play enough snaps, but Evan, what was your reaction to the Noah Fant cut, and any hope for Barner or Arroyo for you?
No, I pretty much have the same thoughts as you. I'm not putting the Seahawks guys in the top 150. I did hear that the Saints are trying to sign Noah Fant, which would throw a wrench into Juwan Johnson, who I think is kind of intriguing as a tight end 3.
Yeah.
But also, like, I mean, the Saints are going to be awful this year, so I don't even know if Noah Fant's going to want to go play for them. But he'll land somewhere.
Noah Fant also visited the Dolphins, which I thought would be an interesting landing spot for him. I don't think anyone thinks Darren Waller can really hold up or win for an entire season there. But yeah, for best ball, if for anybody in deep best ball stuff, we have moved up Elijah Arroyo a lot in the rankings. Be sure you're re-uploading those constantly. I think he can play as a tight end 3 in a lot of formats or a lot of best ball structures. Story 19, Zach Moss. All the beat reporters are skeptical Zach Moss is going to make this team. Remember, Zach Moss broke pieces of his neck last season. A lot of people thought he was going to retire. He's trying to make it back. Still hasn't been practicing, but sounds like he's probably a pretty big dog to make the team. Silva is up at 16 overall on Chase Brown. They're going to go to the season, it sounds like, with just Samaje Perine and Taj Brooks, a 6th-round rookie, behind Chase Brown. So pretty good news generally, or pretty good run out here for Chase Brown, I would say. And there were also some coaching comments about Chase Brown being like, yeah, we're just going to load him up, and he's one of our best players, period. So yeah, Evan, any more thoughts on the Zach Moss fallout or anything related to Bengals backfield?
No, I've been huge on Chase Brown, and I'm going to continue to be huge on Chase Brown and feel real good about that.
Do you take any Taj Brooks late? I haven't been, but like, he's in the mix there if you're in like round 18, round 19, round 20 with like Trevor Etienne and Devin Neal and Jarquez Hunter and all these like dusty late round. Any help for Taj Brooks?
I have not taken any Taj Brooks yet, but I understand it. Matt Waldman, who we've had on the show before, thought that Taj, and he's like a running back aficionado. That's his favorite position to study. He loved Taj Brooks as a prospect.
Story 20 comes out of Minnesota. So Kevin Seifert, longtime Vikings insider, article today on ESPN saying he expects a pretty even split in terms of design carries between Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. That's not that far off from what we were projecting. We are at Aaron Jones 47% of the carries, Jordan Mason 38% of the carries, Ty Chandler 7.5% Now, we do have Jordan Mason for slightly more rushing touchdowns than Aaron Jones. We do expect Jordan Mason to have the goal line role. So we kind of expected this already, but it seems to be going like national now that there's going to be a very heavy split here in Minnesota. Evan also has these guys very close together in his top 150 before this news came out. Evan, any changes for you on this Seifert report or any more thoughts on it?
It kind of just aligns with my expectations. And also, I mean, the Vikings have openly said that they're going to give Jordan Mason the ball in short yardage and goal line. It would not surprise me if Jordan Mason just becomes the Vikings lead back this year and Aaron Jones is used more as like a 9 to 13 touch per game player. I mean, he's 30 years old. You want to preserve him. They have aspirations of going deep in the playoffs this year. And I think that Jordan Mason is a guy who can, I mean, he's got the body and what he showed last year in San Francisco, you know, the mentality to take on a lot of work.
Yeah.
And Aaron Jones can be dynamic still in a very complimentary role, and he's 30 years old. So
Yeah.
they want to preserve him. I think that Jordan Mason could end up outscoring Aaron Jones this year. Aaron Jones is definitely going to have the leg up in the passing game,
Right.
and that's big. But Jordan Mason is going to have the leg up for touchdowns and I think a decent chance at overall carries.
Yeah. So I take a decent amount of Aaron Jones on DraftKings full PPR. I still think he can catch 4 or 5 passes per game, can Aaron Jones. But I do that knowing that at the goal line, they're going to use Jordan Mason. And I know that knowing that what Evan said, there's some threat that Jordan Mason could end up with more base carries there. I will say they gave Aaron Jones pretty good money, man. And I know they gave up capital plus money to get Jordan Mason, but they gave Aaron Jones pretty good money this offseason as well. They're spending a lot of money on their running back room right now. I believe Seifert had it in the article, like 4th most in the league. The Vikings are spending on their running back room here this year. One more Vikings note. Justin Jefferson tweaked his hamstring. Kevin O'Connell today came out and said, I have zero worry about the opener, but there's a lot of time between now and then. What that looks like, we're going to be smart, but at the same time, he wants to get back out there. So might not practice for a while. Justin Jefferson, do you plan or did you move Justin Jefferson down in the ranks at all, Evan, based on this hamstring thing?
I already had CeeDee Lamb ahead of him, and that just gave me confirmation bias.
Okay.
I'm locking in CeeDee Lamb ahead of Justin Jefferson. I mean, I think that the Cowboys could throw the ball 100 more times this year than the Vikings. So,
last story number 21 this morning, the Marshawn Lloyd stuff. This guy, man, it's getting to the point where I feel bad for him. Last year, 2024, Marshawn Lloyd, going all the way back to like the offseason through the regular season, hip, hamstring, ankle, and appendicitis. He comes out this year. He looks great at OTAs. He's starting to crush. They're saying he's way ahead of Emmanuel Wilson. He's going to have a great year. Non-contact groin injury on Monday. And like, Matt LaFleur sounded downtrodden about it. I tweeted the clip if you guys want to watch it. Like, he just looks like he couldn't believe it. Like, he was like sad for Marshawn Lloyd. And I'm kind of sad for him as well. I have no idea how severe this is, but it's just like, well, here we go again. Some soft tissue injuries for Marshawn Lloyd. So I have been drafting him. I'm just going to stop for now to lower my exposure on him. We docked him pretty hard in the rankings until we get more. Evan, any thoughts on this Packers backfield as it sits here July 29th?
Yeah, he had been a guy that I've been taking as well. And that one hurts. I mean, he's a really fun player on paper. I mean, Marshawn Lloyd can catch passes. He's 220 pounds, runs 4.4, was a high pick in the 2024 draft, and he just has not been able to stay healthy. And I think that he was running away with the Packers' number 2 running back job before this. So, and they have a guy who's coming in Josh Jacobs, who's coming off a 300 carry season. So this one hurts. And I had been drafting Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah. So brutal. Yeah. Are you going to move Jacobs up at all on this, or do you think they just go straight to Emmanuel Wilson or Chris Brooks? And because I actually thought that they're going to try to ride Josh Jacobs really hard again, but Marshawn Lloyd could have siphoned something away from Josh Jacobs. I'd be shocked if Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks play a lot or more than they did last
I still
year.
had Marshawn Lloyd as a pretty clear handcuff.
Yeah.
I know that the YouTube producers are going to hate me for this, but can we do a bonus item? I
Yes.
just want to talk about the Giants' backfield a little bit because Cam Scatabo has been generating some buzz. And what are your thoughts on the Giants' backfield right now? On Monday, so they were off on Sunday. They get back to practice on Monday, and Scadaboo's getting first team reps. Not that he got all of them or anything like that, but he got first team reps on Monday. It's almost like, all right, reset. Let's give him a promotion, see what he can do. What are your thoughts? I mean, I love Cam Scadaboo.
My thoughts are that you score fantasy points at the running back position through catching the football and scoring touchdowns. Everybody seems to think that where Cam Scadaboo excels is catching the football and running for touchdowns. And so I have preferred him to Tyrone Tracy. I think Devin Singletary, who was getting some first team reps, could end up on Houston. It's at least possible. So yeah, I don't love like a timeshare back. I do think there'll be a timeshare back on a team I expect to be pretty bad in the Giants. But yeah, it's okay. I think it's okay. Yeah, let me see actually where we're at I think we're actually relatively high on Scadaboo in the ranks. Yeah, we're above market and on Scadaboo in the ranks. We're at 94 overall. ADP is 104. Tyrone Tracy, we're at 102, and ADP is 81 there on Tyrone Tracy. All right. Ton of news. Hopefully that helped reset your guys' mind based on what's happened through the first week of training camp. Be sure you stay tuned to this channel and to this show on the podcast feeds because we will have almost, I believe, 4 shows this week. We're recording Market Monday tomorrow. We'll have that up Thursday or Friday, roughly. And then we're also recording myself, Leone, and JJ Zacharison on quarterback play, the quarterback landscape for fantasy for this year. That'll likely be up over the weekend. Then we'll have our annual show with Matt Harmon next week as well. So it is prime time. Season starts on September 4th. One thing I did fail to mention at the top, NFL preseason starts Thursday. God's game, preseason DFS, $50K to first on DraftKings. Our preseason product is for sale right now if you head to the subscribe tab on establishtherun.com. For producer Luke, producer Ryan, for Evan, for everyone behind the scenes at ETR, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.